What's going on, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. It is Tuesday. That means it's time to go over some collected editions coming out from Marvel Comics this week. So let's go ahead and get started. Before going any further, I do want to thank David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these books. All of these books are due out in the direct market and book market on April 4th. And that's a little bit of a lie. This book right here, this gallery edition of Moon Knight Black... I'm sorry, this is a Treasury edition. Of Moon Knight Black, White, and Blood came out last week. For some reason, I don't know why, I didn't make a video of it, but hey, better late than never. So here we are with Moon Knight Black, White, and Blood, Fantastic Four, The Coming of Galactus. This is a reprint, but it's not just a reprint. It's better than just a reprint. Star-Lord, the Saga of Peter Quill, and then Guardians of the Galaxy, the Marvelverse book. So as always, I put timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around and check out the books that you're only interested in. And in case you don't want any kind of spoilers or just don't care about the other stuff. Who doesn't care about books like this? Come on. All right. So smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and ring that bell for notifications. Let's go ahead and get started. So first up is the Marvelverse Guardians of the Galaxy book. This book right here retails for $9.99, and it seems to be the price point of these type of digest size books for Marvelverse. So digest size means that they are smaller than your trade paperback, which is the trim size of a comic book. So this is the size that these are. Probably the tankobon size, manga size. This book has 120 pages. And this kind of collects stories of not just Guardians of the Galaxy, but Guardians of the Galaxy teaming up with other people. So, as a matter of fact, it collects Guardians Team Up 1 and 2. So you have this beautiful artwork by Arthur Adams, where the Guardians of the Galaxy come to Earth during Brian Michael Bendis' time and team up with the Avengers. It's a two-part story. And yes, the first one is drawn by Arthur Adams. This is the second part right here. And this is drawn by Stefan Rao. And then you get Guardians of the Galaxy Dream On by Mark Sumerak. And this collects Marvel Team Up 1 and 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Dream On, Guardians of the Galaxy, Galaxy's Most Wanted, and all new Guardians of the Galaxy number 5. This story right here is not collecting in any omnibus, and it features the character of Death's Head. Yes, going after the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a fun story, and honestly, not enough Death's Head these days. This is the Guardians of the Galaxy, Galaxy's Most Wanted. It's where Groot, for some reason, turns on Rocket Raccoon. Why would he do that? And then you get all new Guardians of the Galaxy number 5. This is during the Jerry Duggan run of Guardians of the Galaxy. And this is, I think it's, actually it is Chris Samney drawing this. All the way in the back, after 120 pages, or to make up the 120 pages, are some extras. You get some variant covers here in splash pages. Boy, they're tying it in heavy to the movies. Matter of fact, that's the next book I'm going to be talking about. Star-Lord, the Saga of Peter Quill. Now, these big books, these are saga books, but they are about the same thickness of your epic collection. So, I mean, if you look at the spine right there, they are thick books. But that's what Marvel has decided to call these particular books right here. The Saga of... we've had Saga of Kang, we've had the... well, sort of the Loki, Agent of Asgard. That's one of these type of books. We had the Saga of Vision and Scarlet Witch. And this one here is printed in Canada. So this is what it collects right here. And it kicks it off with Guardians of the Galaxy .1. Now, this has 384 pages. It retails for $39.99. Let's actually show the back right here of Peter Quill. This is something very important to note. Because if you're an old school fan of Guardians of the Galaxy, and you just came back to Marvel Comics in the last 10 years or so, the Guardians of the Galaxy have changed. But, I mean, they've changed from the Silver Age to the 90s when Jim Valentino took over. A lot of those characters that showed up in the original run didn't really come back. They came back for a couple of issues. when Brian Michael Bendis took over the Book of Guardians of the Galaxy, he decided to retell the origin of Peter Quill, the origin of Star-Lord. He updated it. And that is the now canonical origin of Star-Lord moving forward. Until who knows when. 30 years from now when they rewrite it. It's comics. It happens. So this tells the origin of how his father and mother met, and how his father took to the stars and left his pregnant mother behind with him, of course, and how he was raised a little boy by a single mom, and then, of course, what ended up happening to his mother, and why he wants revenge. And it sets up the issues of Guardians of the Galaxy by Brian Michael Bendis. Then we jump forward to Star-Lord #1. Now, this is during the era of Sam Humphries' run on Star-Lord. And this goes back and tells the story of a young Peter Quill up in space and becoming the character of Star-Lord, how he became the character of Star-Lord. So again, retconning what had happened previously, but not just with the character of Peter Quill, because we also get an appearance of here by the Ravagers, and one of those famous Ravagers is, of course, Yondu. So if you're familiar with the Yondu that appeared in previous runs of Guardians of the Galaxy, including the modern Cosmic Saga by DNA, this Yondu is a little bit different. This is more like movie Yondu. As a matter of fact, this origin of Peter Quill, this 5 issues that are collected in here of Star-Lord, they are very, very much like the movie counterpart. So this collects that Guardians of the Galaxy .1 from 2013, the Star-Lord issues 1 through 5 from 2015, and then this is where it gets interesting, because this also collects Thanos 7 through 12, the 2003 series. So we're going back, and I'll explain a little bit about that. And then Annihilation Conquest Star-Lord 1 through 4, which of course sets up the new modern cosmic Guardians of the Galaxy team. So there's a lot of history behind this, but I find it interesting that, we're going from this movie-inspired series to this Keith Giffen series. So this collects Thanos 7 through 12. This is the stuff that I've said, I would love for them to make a prologue to Annihilation Omnibus. It's been previously collected in this long out-of-print trade paperback. This collects all 12 issues of this, but this is the one that focuses more on Star-Lord. Yes, it is heavy on the character of Thanos. So a lot of the things that you see in Annihilation come from here, like the status quo of Thanos, the status quo of Death, why she looks a little bit different, and what happened to Star-Lord, why he has those cybernetic eyes, or one cybernetic eye, and why he has cybernetic body parts. So there is a lot of Thanos in here, and there he finally is. Peter Quill, a man who have been rumored to be dead, and this is actually his reappearance. He'd been gone from Marvel Comics forever, and Keith Giffen decided, let's bring him back. It was so nice to also see Ron Lim on artwork, and you're going to see new characters, you're going to see old characters appear through here, and it might be a little confusing to go from this type of Peter Quill to this type of Peter Quill, because a lot had happened between then and now, and this story right here of Thanos. And of course, we get the Star-Lord miniseries, which is really Guardians of the Galaxy issue #0. All 4 issues of this. Written by Keith Giffen and drawn by Timothy Green II. And I love his artwork. So this is where we get the modern Guardians of the Galaxy. This is what went on and became the DNA series of Guardians of the Galaxy. And of course, that's what James Gunn took inspiration from for his movies. So here, Peter Quill is sent on a mission. I'm not going to give away what he's going to do, because that's all part of Annihilation Conquest, in case you haven't read it. But this does tell you exactly who the villain is behind the Annihilation Conquest. So here he is. He's walking around with a bunch of Kree, and they're like, look, you're going to go on the suicide mission. And he's like, whoa, okay, so we're going to give you some prisoners. Characters that have been locked up for different reasons, including Bug, Micronauts forever, baby. And we also get Mantis here, and Deathcry, just a character from the 90s Avengers run, created, I think it was Bob Harris and Steve Epting that created that character. She's Shi'ar. And we also get this interesting character, Captain Universe. And anybody could be Captain Universe. But besides Mantis, the two other important characters that join that have never been part of the Guardians of the Galaxy are Rocket Raccoon and Groot. Now, the very important thing to note about this Groot before you start quoting the Groot from the movies is that this Groot can actually talk. He says a lot more than "I am Groot." That comes later on. As a matter of fact, let's just show some of the action sequences. I love the artwork in here. Timothy Green did not do enough. I think he is such an awesome artist, and I thought he was perfect for this book. And this book was a lot of fun. And it sets up, of course, the Guardians of the Galaxy. So here he is, Groot talking right here. But I love this particular team. This really felt like a Suicide Squad. You don't know who's going to live, you don't know who's going to die type of team with beautiful artwork. And all the way in the back is where you're going to see some extras. So like I said, it's a very interesting collection because you have stuff that's inspired by the movie, and then you have stuff that inspired the movie. So just keep that in mind if you haven't read comics in a while and you're expected to see the same kind of character of Peter Quill as when you left it. He's changed a little bit. A lot. Some variant covers, including just a reminder. And there we go. 384 pages, $39.99. Now let's check out those spines. Alright, here are all the spines of the books coming out this week. Not a lot of books. Well, even just 3 books, really, because this Treasury edition came out last week. But always this moment, I like to remind people to smash that like button and subscribe and ring that bell for notifications. Seriously, that goes a long way for us here on the channel. Alright, let's keep going with this overview. Fantastic Four, Epic Collection, Volume 3, The Coming of Galactus. Now, what I said earlier about this not just being a reprint, this is better than just a reprint. It's true. So, we've had this come out before. It came out a few years ago, went out of print. This version of The Coming of Galactus has been updated. I love this. This is crazy because usually when you see Epic Collections, you see like 30 writers and 20 artists, but it's just Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. That's it. And here's your table of contents where you're going to find each of these stories, kicking it off with Fantastic Four number 33. So this does collect Fantastic Four 33 through 51, as well as annual number 3. It's 448 pages, and the book retails for $39.99. So what makes this one stand apart from the previous reprints or any other Epic reprint is that they are using the new masters that they had for the reprint of the Fantastic Four Omnibus Volume 2. If you go back and watch my video, I compared the new printing of Volume 2 to the previous printing. They've gone back and remastered every single panel, all the colors, and it's a hell of a job that Corey and his team did. Just remastering everything in no details left behind. It was amazing. If you want to go back and watch that video, you can see some of the subtle differences and then some of the bigger differences, but I did do a video comparing both of those. So those new masters for the very first time are in an Epic Collection. It's the first time an Epic Collection has been upgraded and remastered using the new Masterwork files, and I think that is very exciting. To a lot of people, like I've mentioned in that video, it's like going from DVD to Blu-ray. They're not gonna notice. Most people aren't. You have to have a keen eye for these things. You have to have a love for these things, and it definitely is there for people that do notice. But even without that, it's a reprint of a book that came and went. This is the stories where the Frightful Four are introduced. This is where the Fantastic Four end up going to the Skrull homeworld and to kind of get revenge on what happened earlier to one of their family members. And then they get, a small taste of what the Skrulls are really like. Are they really, truly evil? There's a huge team up, well, not huge, but it was to some people, a team up here with Daredevil to go up against Dr. Doom. But before we are even introduced to Galactus and his Herald, we are introduced to a group of characters that will forever be a part of Marvel Comics, and that is the Inhumans. And they have ties to outer space, like the Kree. But then we get, of course, the lead-in to the coming of Galactus, which for a lot of people, I remember Chris Claremont, I remember a lot of creators talking about these stories for the first time. They were forced to buy the next issue. Because up until then, most of these comics, most of these Fantastic Four comics, Spider-Man comics, Avengers comics, Hulk comics, they were kind of stand-alone-ish. Each issue was a standalone issue, meaning that anybody could grab any issue at any random time and catch up with everything. And the stories really didn't continue or follow into the next issue, but they kind of did here a little bit. But in this, it was for sure there. You were forced to buy the next issue of the Fantastic Four because you need to know what happens. You need to know who this giant creature that sent a herald known as Silver Surfer that is super powerful, and who this could possibly be. I love when Jack Kirby was experimenting with photos and artwork like that. And then there he is, Galactus. Now, of course, he looks a little bit different in the next issue, but this is it. This is huge. Coming of Galactus. And how Reed deals with this. If you've never read this, this is one of the most classic stories of all time. And to this day, put Marvel Comics, not just put Fantastic Four, but also Marvel Comics on the map for a lot of people. It made it the world's greatest magazine indeed. And a lot of it, of course, has to do with Jack Kirby's artwork, and how they end up defeating this character is awesome. But for a epic collection called The Coming of Galactus, there's a lot of Frightful Four in this book. As a matter of fact, I think most of the extras are Frightful Four from the previous printing that I had. So it's been collected in so many versions. There's a huge monster edition of this book. But it's always exciting to get a new collection of this particular story. This, to a lot of people, is some of the finest periods of the Fantastic Four. It's what made comics what they are this day. And if you've been reading Fantastic Four for the first time, you have that first omnibus, and you're not getting, I don't get it. Like, why do people say this is such a good book? It's just okay at best. It's not until you get to this particular era right here, this period, where it's one story after another that you just want to continue these adventures. And you want to know how they just keep going from here. We also have the Dragon Man in here. I can't forget about Dragon Man. But yes, this is the Fantastic Four. The Coming of Galactus. Let's look at some extras. So we have some house ads here, including the coming of Black Bolt there. And then we have original art by Jack Kirby and Chick Stone. And yes, the photo collage here by Jack Kirby. Which, of course, like I said, he was experimenting doing artwork like that. He did a lot of that for the Negative Zone. Original art, Vince Colletta now doing the inks. And like I mentioned, a lot of Frightful Four stuff. And they're all courtesy of the Heritage Auctions. I believe this is man, how cool would it be to have one of these sweatshirts? Like, you were way ahead of the time if you had a sweatshirt of the Thing. This is a t-shirt. And then the trade paperback of the Marvel Masterworks version of volumes 5 and 6. Again, $39.99, and it has 448 pages. And that is the latest printing of The Coming of Galactus. Last but certainly not least is the Moon Knight Black, White, and Blood Treasury Edition. My goodness. These books are phenomenal. So this is what it will look like when it's right in there with the rest of these Black, White, and Blood Treasury Editions. I know we have, I think, at least the Darth Vader Black, White, and Blood coming, and I assume it's going to be a Treasury. And I think I've already announced that, but in case I haven't, I'm sure it's coming. But let's come back to this. These have been a lot of fun. I love these type of books because to me they feel like palate cleansers. By the way, this one here is $29.99. And it does have a parental advisory. And that is a cover by the legendary Bill Sienkiewicz. I love this. I'm not sure if you can see the... yeah, there we go. The blood. It's all embossed everywhere, including his hands right there. The word blood right there. Just shines when you put it up to the light. Very, very cool. It's a nice touch. You have black end paper there. It's a soft cover, unlike the gallery editions, which are hardcovers. Here is your table of contents. You have Jonathan Hickman and a Chris Bachalo story. So this is an anthology series. This is what I mean by palate cleanser. It feels like you can read these at any time because these stories take place at any given time in Moon Knight's career. And sometimes, you know, he's Jake Lockley, Stephen Grant, and sometimes he's just Moon Knight. He's Mr. Knight. The Midnight Mission is there, and sometimes it takes place in his past, and when he's learning his powers. Sometimes Khonshu is heavily involved, and I like that. Do you have to know much about the character of Moon Knight? Maybe it helps to know a little bit about him, like his personality, or his dissociative identity disorder that he's been suffering from, depending on the writer, of course. So let me just give you a small taste of this particular book. And again, these books are big. I mean, they're bigger than your trade paperbacks. Here it is compared to the size of a trade right here, so you can see how much bigger it is. They are as the size of the gallery editions, but they are in soft cover. And it's not truly soft cover. It's like that. I love these. These are great. But let me just give you a small taste. This is, again, at any given point in Moon Knight's life. This is the story by Jonathan Hickman and Chris Bachalo. Then we move on to this particular era where he has a team up with Spider-Man. And this is during the, what is that era? I guess that would be the, is it the Warren Ellis era, probably, when he had this costume? And then we have this particular era of Moon Knight. This is the story with Red Blade. And this takes place during, like, modern time, during the modern era of Moon Knight by Jed MacKay. I'm actually surprised we don't have any Jed MacKay stories in here. Like, because you could see the Midnight Mission playing a part in that. There is a couple of really dark stories in here. A lot of the parental advisory has to do with the violence. And since this is an anthology, each issue has 3 different stories. This one here is by Patrick Searcher. It's drawn and written by him. It's a really good story. And then this is the issue number 3 right here. And that's a Frank Cho cover. Sometimes the creators put the title or their credits underneath the title, and other times they don't. This is an interesting story right here because this is Moon Knight and it's a Jake Lockley story. So it's how they're dealing with a bunch of bank robbers that are not afraid to kill. And it's an interesting take on the character of Moon Knight, like which is real, Jake Lockley or Moon Knight? Who's playing Moon Knight if Jake Lockley is driving? Here's a story that ties closely to Khonshu, the being that gave him his powers. There is a story in the 4th issue, this right here, that includes depictions of suicide. And they do give you a warning. And I love the fact that they share the suicide prevention hotline right here. If you or someone you know is suffering from any of these symptoms. I think that's great that when comic books do that. And they've been doing that for a long time. They've been doing that in single issues for decades. I remember in the 90s that started to happen. You didn't see it a lot in the 80s, from, if my memory serves me right. But in the 90s is when you started seeing a lot more of that. Now, this book, like I said, retails for $29.99, and it has 136 pages. It just gives you a small taste of what the art looks like in some of this. And just using the colors, red, white, and black. Okay, yes, blood, sure. But that's not blood. Or is it? I love the different just range in art throughout here. And it's nice to have a Bill Sienkiewicz cover, too. All right, let's look at some of the variant covers here. There is a Stan Sakai cover, which, like I mentioned before, he did I think it was a Wolverine or a Deadpool issue, or part of the anthology, and that is badass. Alexander Lozano. And that's it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you're picking up, which ones you're hoping one day will have some kind of omnibus edition, whether this be with a Moon Knight omnibus or a Black, White, and Blood omnibus, or whether you'd love to see a Star-Lord omnibus. And of course, this has already been collected in omnibus editions. So, any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button on the way out. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.